Hi, my name is Lynda Diamond, and I teach drawing, painting, and digital arts. I'm a fine artist and have exhibited my paintings all over the world, and I've taught adults and teens and children for the last 20 years. So today I want to share some of my knowledge with you. I would like to teach you how to draw a pear, but to draw it in a way that the old masters drew things, drew people, drew different objects. They used different um, methods for creating realistic drawings that we're still appreciating many, many, many years later. We're going to be using a grid to draw a pear today. First, I wanted to go over with you the drawing that we're going to be doing. We're going to be focusing first on the size of the paper that we're going to be drawing on. So even though we've got a large piece of paper here, the actual photograph we're going to be using for this is a much smaller rectangle. This is a large rectangle here, this paper, and we're going to be creating a smaller rectangle. We're going to be drawing a grid, and then we're going to be going in and getting our contour lines in first. And once we've got our contour lines in, we're going to be going in and getting our contour lines a little bit more solid. And once we've got our contour lines in, then we start working on shading. Now you might ask, why are we using the grid? So we're using a grid to be able to control our placement on the page. So when you're a new artist and just starting out learning how to draw, our tendency is to draw things very small. And the reason for that is because it's easier to control a smaller drawing when you're first starting out. So what the grid does, it enables us to control the size of what it is that we're drawing and also the placement on the page. So the grid is going to give us a lot of control. Once we start going in and getting in some of the shading, first we're going to be practicing our shading values. And this is going to help us control how we get our shading into our pear. Now, shading helps the pear create a three-dimensional looking pear. If we didn't have the shading in here, it would look much, much more like a cartoon. So let's get started with drawing the pear using a grid. I'm going to be using a 9-inch by 12-inch paper, and I like to use this brand, Strathmore Vision Sketch. This is a really good quality paper for sketching and learning how to draw. And if you have a paper that is a different size than this, like maybe you have just some typing paper hanging around, you could still use the typing paper because we're going to be controlling the size of our paper. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the pear, and we're going to have to figure out how are we going to get this pear on our paper the way we see it on the screen. So the first thing that we need to look at is the size of this paper. So on the screen, the size of the paper is a much shorter rectangle than what I am seeing on my actual pad. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line over here on our paper to create a shorter rectangle. And you don't want this line to be crooked, because if it's crooked, it's all not going to look so great. And if you want, you could use a ruler to get this line. Now, you don't want to put this line too far down or too far up, because remember, you want to get kind of a shorter rectangle the way that you see on the actual pear. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw a grid. Now you should be able to see my paper while I'm doing this drawing, just like you see the pear on the left side. It's so important for me to have my students really studying what it is that they're going to be drawing. And that's why I'm having you focus in on the actual photograph that we're going to be drawing from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my paper in half. Now, some of you are going to want to get a ruler to do this. But because I've been doing this for such a long time, I'm able to kind of free-handedly do this. So you might want to get a ruler and create 4 equal boxes like you see on the screen. And I'm not drawing really hard. I'm kind of sketching, I'm kind of lightly sketching. And the reason is because we're going to be erasing all these grids. The grid lines are just a tool to help you. So you don't want to get your lines too dark when you're doing this. This is just kind of sketchy lines. Okay, now what I want you to do is, now that we've got our grid in, I want you to go in. We're going to do something called middle marks. Now, this is something I invented. I don't know if the old masters did middle marks, but this really will help you in your drawings, especially your realistic drawings. So in the middle of each of these lines, I'm going in and getting a little yellow mark. Now remember, you don't want to get that line over here. That's not in the middle. You want to get that line right in the middle of each line. Do it lightly. This is just there to help guide you, help guide you. So I've got my middle marks in now. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to get in some of my contour lines. So now I've got my middle marks in, and now that's going to help me with my contour lines. So I'm going to be using red in box number 2. Now I labeled these boxes so that you know what I'm talking about when I'm referring to a box. You don't need to put a label on here. So I'm going to go into box number 2, and I'm going to get this red line in as I'm drawing it in box number 2. Now I know where that line starts because of that middle mark line, right? So my goal is to get that line in the way I see it. Now that sounds really easy, but getting those lines in exactly the way you see it, you need to look up a lot. Look up, get information. How does that line go in box number 2, that red line that I just drew in? Get that line. You could pause the video and take your time. but get that line in the way you see it. Now I'm going to go into box number 3. I'm going in with an orange line in box number 3, and I'm just looking at that orange line and drawing it the way I see it on the grid. Now, the more that you could just focus in on each line and not worrying about that you're drawing a pear, the easier the pear is going to come to you. So it's kind of like building a house, brick by brick. Can't think of the whole house when you're laying each brick down. You're focusing on getting each brick right. Okay, now I'm going to go into box number 4. And now I'm going in with a black line. And try and get this black line in the best that you can. You see where it starts? It's on the right side of the yellow middle mark line. So get that line in the best you can. Look up, get some information, sketch it, look up again, get more information. Does that look about right? Now I'm going to go in, and you might want to stop your video, take your time. So learning how to draw takes time. It's not about who does this the quickest. This is not for people who want to do things quickly. This is more about studying, being able to study lines. All right, now in box number 2, I'm going in and I'm drawing the line that I see in box number 2. And I'm getting that line in. And also in box number 2, I'm going to draw where I've already got the pink line for the stem. Make sure you don't put a stem in there that's too small, and try and get the shape of the stem in the way you see it. So in realistic drawing, it's all about seeing and then drawing what it is that you see. So now I've got my pear on my paper the way I see it on the page in the photograph. The next thing we're going to be doing is drawing the shadow in box number 3 and 4. I've already got a pink line. Now look at where that shadow line starts in box number 3. That shadow line starts right where that yellow middle mark line is. So that's where you're going to start your shadow line. Okay, I've got my shadow line in there now. And I'm going to kind of hold up my drawing, look at my drawing, make sure that I don't need to make some edits. I can already see some edits I'm going to need to make. In box number 3, I'm going to edit this line in here. So in drawing, you're going to need to edit a lot. Just like being a writer, artists have to edit their artwork. Gonna hold this up, see if I need to edit a little bit more. Maybe I need to bring this line down just a little bit more. So do your edits, hold up your drawing, hold it up like this, put it next to what you see on the screen and edit it accordingly. You could pause the video if you need to. Okay, so this is where we're at with our drawing right now. This is where we're at, and Now we don't really need our grid anymore because we've got our Pear on our page the way we want it. We let the grid help us. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to erase the grid. I don't need it. So if you don't have a good eraser, go get one. I could put some links down below, my recommendations for pencils and erasers and even pencil sharpeners. You're going to need a pencil sharpener. Make sure that your pencils are sharpened before we do the shading because we're going to be using the sides of our pencils. And I'm getting this in. So now we've gotten our grid completely erased. And now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten up our lines. We're going to tighten the lines up. What does that mean? Right now, our drawing is really a sketch. And what is a sketch? A sketch is made of little, tiny little lines where you're trying to define the shape. And now when we tighten this up, we're going to go in and now it's really important that you've got a pretty sharp pencil. So if you don't have a sharp pencil, you might want to just pause for a moment and go sharpen your pencil. I'm going to go in and get my sharp pencil. This is a little bit sharper. And I'm going to slowly go over. Now this is slow. So, and you might want to even move your paper around so that it's easier to reach some difficult places to get to. So I usually move my paper around. Do you notice how slowly I'm doing this? So in drawing, accuracy counts for everything. Sometimes beginning students want to do things quickly because they're smart and they're used to doing things quickly. But in drawing, you really need to kind of do things in a slower, more accurate way. And so now I'm going to go in and lightly, I'm just going to lightly go over the shadow lines. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, and do you see all these little scratchy marks? Got all these little scratchy marks over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase my scratchy marks because I just want a nice clean line. Now there's different erasers you could use, and I like, this is called an elastic eraser. And you could also use knee erasers. Knee erasers are good too. What are knee erasers? Knee erasers are a little bit different in texture. This is a knee eraser. And you could actually move this around the knee eraser around, and it's good for trying to get into like really difficult areas. You could shape the eraser so that you could go in and erase some really difficult areas. So take your time, clean up those lines. So you've got just one nice clean line. And you might be thinking, wow, this is taking a lot of time, but all good artwork, most good artwork takes time and patience. So learning to draw is a great way to learn how to develop patience. Okay, so I've cleaned up the lines, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice my shading values. When I was learning how to draw when I was very young, people used to talk about the different values, and I just couldn't understand what they were saying. And so I want to be really clear about it so it's not confusing to you. What a value is a lightness or darkness of a particular color. So this is going to be value 1, 2, and 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to shade each box a different value. So the lightest value is going to be box number 1. Now I want you to notice how I'm holding my pencil. I'm holding it like almost like a butter knife. So those of you that are confused about this, just put your pencil down, grab it like this. Do you see how I've got it? Take your forefinger and get it a little bit underneath where the tip of the pencil is. And then just use the side of your pencil very lightly. Don't press hard. Go in and shade value number 1. Get it even. You don't want it scratchy. No scratchy lines. No pressure on the tip of your pencil, just a side. Box number 2. Get it a little darker. Press harder. Still want to get it even. Box number 3. Press really hard. If you go outside the lines, that's fine. We're just really trying to get the values in, because realistic drawing is all about getting your values in the right place, your lights and your darks in the right place. So the next thing I'm going to do is to make this easy and to do this in different steps. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to shade in my pear, value number 1. And I'm going to try to get my pencil so that it's going in the same direction mostly. So you don't want it looking scratchy. And then we're going to blend it with a tissue. We're not going to use a blending stump. Blending stumps are more for blending small areas. And if you used it, it would get it looking too sort of messy. It would look streaky if you used a blending stump. That's why we're going to use a tissue. We don't need to go in there yet, but do you see how this is an even value? And this is very much like value number 1. So get your, and make sure you bring this to the edges. Get your edges in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a paper towel. You can use a Kleenex, a tissue. You can use toilet paper if that's all you have. Just get some tissue and fold it a couple of times and then kind of wrap it around your finger. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to I'm pressing pretty hard. I'm blending this. And what this does is it gives an even value. It creates a much more even value. And when you do this, some of the blending is going to go outside the lines and we're going to clean that up. So do you see how I've got this sort of like smeary outside the lines? You see that? So I'm going to go in with my eraser and I'm going to clean that up. And don't forget to take your time. You could pause your video if you need to. Okay, so we've got our first layer of shading in. So the next thing I want us to do is I want us to go in and look at how the shading is working in the realistic looking pear. So let's go in and look at that realistic looking pear. The pear. So we could really study the different values in this pear. So look at this area right in here. And notice that this area in here is darker, that whole area. So what I want you to do is lightly outline the area that you see is a little bit darker. I'm going in and I'm outlining that area on mine. And I'm now going to take the side of my pencil and shade in box number 2. Make sure you got that line in right. Here, I'm going to stop sharing this so you can see what I'm doing with mine. All right, so now I'm going in, I'm using the side of my pencil and I'm shading this in box number 2. And sometimes I go a little bit outside the line because you don't want this to look like a stripe. I'm going a little bit outside the lines right here. And make sure you bring this to the edge. And I'm going to go in with my tissue. Now, if you need more time to shade your pear evenly, stop the video and shade it. And when you're ready, go back in and look at how I'm blending box number 2 value on the pear. Now the pear is looking a little bit dark right now, so we got to get some light into the pear. But this is definitely darker over here than it is over here to the right. And let's look at the pear again. Okay, so now we could see where it's a little bit lighter. And I want to go in and erase a little bit. I'm going to outline it. Gonna get this area a little bit lighter. Now I'm not gonna go in with a pencil line, but I'm just gonna go in with my eraser. I'm using the side of my eraser. I'm not pressing too hard. If I press too hard, it'll get streaky looking, and you don't want it streaky. And it's starting to look like the pear. Now I'm constantly looking up to see where it's a little bit lighter. So your eraser is an important drawing tool. Okay, I'm gonna just show you where mine is at. Okay, can you see how I've gotten it lighter in here? I'm gonna get it a little bit lighter. My goal is to not have it look like a stripe. You don't want this to be too stripy looking. So make sure that you're going in with your eraser and working it the way you need to. And then we're going to get the highlights in, the stem and the shadow, and then we're going to have a pear. Okay. Now, at this point, you might want to go back in and do a little bit more blending. And let's look here. Do you see that area right there and maybe a little bit there? It's the lightest area. So I'm going to go in with my eraser, and where I see that light area, I'm going to press harder. Now I'm going to stop this so you could see what I'm doing. Do you see how I'm pressing harder in here? Okay, now I've got the highlights in there. And now we're going to go in and get that darker stem. That stem is. That stem is somewhere between box number 2 and box number 3. So I'm going to go in and get that stem. I'm using the tip of my pencil. For things like this, you can use your tip of your pencil for shading. And now we're going to go underneath the pear. Look at underneath that pear. Look to see how this, the darkest area is right underneath that pear, box number 3. That's the darkest area of this whole drawing, is that shadow underneath the pear. Here, so I'm going to go here so you could see what I'm doing. This is so dark right in here. Then I'm going to take the side of my pencil, get it like maybe box number 2. And I'm going to blend this out, and I'm not pressing so hard now because this is going into like a box number 1 shadow right here. And we're going to blend this out. And I'm going to go and get now when your tissue gets really dirty, you want to refold it so you've got a nice clean area. Otherwise, it just gets really mucky, dirty. All right, I'm going in and I'm blending this, and I might erase a little bit towards the edges because it's really light towards the edge, the shadow. And also, if it goes outside that line, because it's a shadow and it does not have such a clear define. Do you see around that edge on the outside of the shadow? I'm going to erase that a little bit. And even that contour line, I'm going to erase a little bit because it's really light over there. So in realistic drawing, you're always controlling, you're always working the lights and the darks to get them the way that you see in the object or person that you're drawing, whatever it is you're drawing, you're always reviewing what it looks like on the screen. It's a little bit darker right over here. So I'm going to get it a little bit darker over here. And there you have it. We've got a pear. We've got a pear drawing. Wow. Here, I'm going to stop. There you have it. You've got your pear drawing, and you've got it so that you've got it placed where you want it to. You've controlled the location, you've controlled the lines, you've got your highlights, your shadows, and you're good to go. Now, If your pear didn't turn out 100 billion% perfect, all that means is that you just need to practice. And all artists practice. And the more that you practice, the better you will get. I hope you've really enjoyed today's class, learning how to draw this pear. If you practice doing this, drawing the pear the way that I've instructed for you to do this, you will develop your skills in drawing and you will continue to improve. If you're interested in continuing to learn how to draw, you can check my info down below on how to contact me. I do teach adults, teens, and kids how to draw realistically. And I have been teaching for 20 plus years. I've taught over 2,000 students. So I hope you enjoyed today's class, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.